Hi guys, what's up? This is Free Nachos, and in this video we're going to be reviewing some hands played during the CoinPoker Cash Game World Championship. And these are going to be some of the best players in the world. I competed in this event as well. I lost 40k in 2 sessions, relatively short sessions, and ended up leaving with a tail tucked between my legs. But these guys have truly battled, and I have a lot of respect for that. Maybe next year, if my bankroll is a little bit larger than it is this year, or than it was last year, I might be able to do that as well. Although probably I'm not going to have an Ash versus these guys. I just want to be very clear. What we're going to be doing is we're going to review hands where the big blind went and check all the flop bet, turn goes check check, and then the overbets. And the goal is to gain an understanding of possible exploits. Like, what is the difference that between high stakes and low stakes in these hands? Can we deduct that from these hands? Are they trying to exploit something? If there's no exploit, are they doing something that is close to equilibrium, or are they simply making a mistake? But I would be the last one to be able to say that I am going to feel confident enough to critique these guys' plays. So definitely trying to take an approach of learning rather than critiquing, but we'll see. So, oh hi Mark here calls a c-bet, very standard up until now. On the turn here, Prodigy checks back, and I want you to think about what you would do in your games with different parts of your range. Are you ever going to check back a king, or even better than that? And do you think that something like that would happen in equilibrium? I think that on a king here in particular, you are probably, as the in-position player, allowed to bet the top of your range near almost. There will be some checking back with kings, I imagine. Maybe even with some boats. Like king 10 I could see checking back occasionally. Blocking calls very heavily. But generally, I think you're allowed to be betting very often with the top of your range, because the in-position player is going to have a lot of kings that the out-of-position player doesn't have. Ace-king, king-queen. He's going to have at a higher frequency because the out-of-position player is going to 3-bet those sometimes. On a 10, for instance, I would expect the in-position player to have to check back a bit more with trips plus, because then the out-of-position player will also make a lot of trips. I'm not entirely sure if that's true, but we'll see in a sim. I'll pull it up in a second. But that's kind of my idea here. Anyway, he checks back, and then like you said, oh hi Mark, the out-of-position player is going to overbet the river, large, and then we'll see what Prodigy did. He folded here, which is obviously fine. We don't know what he had. We are going to be, let's see, is this, we are going to be king 10 deuce, just do it like this, king 10 deuce, call, and then king, same suit as the 10. It was clubs, but now it's diamonds. There should be some leading here, which is already kind of interesting. So this makes me want to make an AI solve right off the bat, but we'll see. Then we want to look at the in-position betting frequency here, and we can see that he actually needs to check a bit more than I expected. I would have expected him to be betting a bit more often here. And this is even when the out-of-position player is leading sometimes, and you can see, I don't know, trips and quads are going to be leading more often than third pair, second pair, and ace high, for instance. So the betting range is always going to be stronger than the checking range. So when there's some leads, that means that there's, for one, a reason to be betting with certain parts of the range versus parts of the range of fill-in. That's one thing, but the other thing is that the checking range automatically becomes a little bit weaker, because you're not going to be just bluffing. You're going to start off with value. That's the reason that you want to be betting, and you're going to be mixing in some bluffs. So this checking range is slightly capped in theory, and then in position is forced to check back 16%. I imagine, I'm curious what this would be in an AI solution, if there's going to be leading there as well, like if you sometimes change the sizing slightly, do it like this. King in the same suit as the 10. Is there going to be any leading here? Here there's no leading, so slightly different model obviously, and slight changes in the model might result in slightly different frequencies here. So there's going to be a sliver of leading, but not an awful lot. Now let's say we make this the 10 of spades. Is there going to be more leading? I imagine yes. So now there's going to be a lot of leading, which we'll get back to in a sec. We'll start with a king here. Again, same suit as the 10, check, and then how often 19% you need to check back still, and pocket 10 is actually checking back more often. I would have not guessed that. I guess one of the reasons might be that we block some hands that are going to check the river, like some ace 10, jack 10, queen 10, make it more likely that our opponent is going to be betting the river with a king or a random bluff. But you can see he needs to check back this 20% of the times. If we go to that 10 and I'm not going to assume that these players are not going to be leading, but the opponents that you and I are playing against might not. At least the players that I play against in my games are not consistently leading. You'll see a lead here every now and then, but definitely not as often as you should, I think. And I kind of want to see what that means for our impositions checking frequency. So yeah, now you can see, actually if there's no leading, you need to check 50% of the top of your range. We'll go back to the king here, check, and the imposition player is just a random low stakes player. It's definitely not Prodigy, who we would expect would never do this. But your low stakes player is turn trips, or he turned a boat, and he lives by the rule big hand, big bet, and so he's just going to pull it with those hands. This is something that you see quite often. And then the river is a 6 of same suit as the deuce, 6 of clubs here, and we'll duplicate this real quick. We're actually going to go back here, and this is the equilibrium one now, 6. So no shoving. We will add like a block bet. Oh wait, check. We'll add a block bet, and let's say 150 and 300. Some overbetting, no 3x overbetting. So either, oh hi, Mark just made a mistake here, or he thinks that either a Prodigy is going to overfold, which is like a reasonable thought, not necessarily because I think Prodigy will overfold, but the pool as a whole at low stakes, for instance, is folding more versus big bets. So if you have that thought in-game, in your games, then that would be a reasonable thought, not in these games necessarily. Or he thinks that Prodigy is not checking back enough of the top of his range, and therefore he's allowed to go larger with this hand, but also with value. And so those are the options. He made a mistake, or he was exploiting something, and I think those two are the most likely exploits. But you can see here, if he doesn't check back, then 3x overbet becomes like the most prominent bet sizing if he doesn't have that at all. Now obviously we can't really say that, quite likely he will have it sometimes, so maybe we need to be a bit more precise. I usually go with just going with an extreme sim, show which direction we need to be heading into, and then you can always go back and tweak it a little bit. Anyway, interesting one. Let's go to the next one. So here we face a larger bet as the other position player, and then on a 10, I wonder if there's a sliver of leading. I don't think so. On a 5, a 7, I think there will be a lot of leading. On a 4, there will be some leading. I think not on a 10. And then that's interesting. So on a deuce, Prodigy goes ahead and goes for the 3x. We're going to open a sim again. It's just too interesting of a spot not to. Maybe sometimes we will do it, sometimes we will not. I imagine that some of the recreational players are going to skip these, and my retrenching graph will look pretty shitty, but that's fine. I'm happy to make this for you diehards out there. So yeah, going with the bigger sizing is fine. I think it went bet 75, but I'm not entirely sure. Okay, bet 75 and call. And now let's go first with our assumption that on the 7 we have a larger leading range as the big blind. Not very large, okay. On the 5, bigger, 4, smaller than, I guess. Yeah. And 10 of hearts, I don't think any. Was it 10 of hearts? Yeah, okay. No leading range at all. This is, again, relevant because if there's leads, that shows you something about how ranges interact. We can go real quick to that 5. And then if we go ahead and check here, let's say overpair plus needs to check back 15% of the times, but if there's no leading, which I'm guessing in most of you guys' games, you will never see a lead after facing that large of a bet size. And then we go here, and suddenly it is, instead of 15, it's 35%. All right, anyway, it was the 10 check, and I don't think there will be too much very interesting stuff here. Like one thing that might be interesting is open-ended straight draw. Like 4-5 needs to check back pure as in position. There's just a lot of open-ended straight draws and you just check back the worst, it seems like. On a7 here, for instance, you are not making the nut straight. You might just, you're going to get basically owned sometimes by jack 9 or 9-5 suited if out of position has that. Does out of position have 9-5 suited? A sliver. Anyway, check back. River is a deuce of clubs. And let's see if this is going to be a thing. So there's some all-in even, which is very telling. Even with the check back, right? So that is already kind of interesting because I expect that people will generally just bet their 4-5 too often as the in-position player. But you can see 3x overbet is a very common sizing here. And Prodigy goes for it. Do we have... Yeah, we have the whole cards on. We just don't know what he had. Well played. Small c-bet. Check. Large overbet. Yeah, I think this one is kind of what I will skip. This one, like this might be okay, this might not be okay. I could see you have just a pretty natural advantage, but big blind versus button here, and this might just be a thing in Equilibrium. I don't think it's interesting enough, at least not applicable enough to you guys' games. So large just c-bet, which is fine. And then I think they should be leading on the turn here when there's like a larger c-bet like this. Not saying that Prodigy should be leading here with his hand always, definitely not, but there should be some leading, I think. Could be wrong though, like it's not a very large sizing, but we'll see. Oof. Okay. Interesting sizing choice. Like, all in all, very interesting hand. Alright, so 7-3 deuce. In position bet 60% here. 7 of hearts. Is there going to be leading here? Tom. Feels like it should be, but reasonable amount of leading. King 7 shouldn't be in the range here, but that is because there's rake in the sim, and the preflop ranges there's rake, and in these games there wasn't any rake, so King 7 is probably a fine open given the rake. Should be some leading here, but definitely not pure. And then checking back, just a sliver of trips here, and overpair, underpair. But I expect, again, the pool to never find these leads. Not the high stakes pool. Again, this is the difference between low stakes and high stakes, and I'm just showing you what the difference would be here. I think 100% certain that Prodigy knows that there should be leads here in Equilibrium. And when there are no leads, you can see overpair plus is checking back 25% of the time. So pretty consistent. Like if you go here, it's 20% of the time, which is still quite often, right? You turn effectively the nuts and then you check back this often. Again, we can try to see why that, what that would lead to if you're just betting those too often. So let's say we are going to say we're playing versus a reasonable low stakes player that knows that you need to check back sometimes. He just is like we all are, a bit too excited, and he just squeezes in a few too many bets, and quite likely for slightly too large of a sizing as well, but that we'll ignore right now. So betting too often, betting too often, Ben then chooses to check this time for what happens then. Again, we gotta add some sizes here. Wait with me. So 150, we'll go for the 3x. I guess we'll add the block bet, as we've been doing that for quite some time. And we can see it is in there. The 1.5, actually I thought the 3x was in there. 3x is not in there. So even with some exploits, it's hard to justify this. If we get that overbet, I'm guessing that for is just jamming already versus like the 1.5x. Not really interested in min raising, I imagine. Might be trying to get like a spew call by some random bluff that Prodigy might have here, or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what the min raise is, but maybe someone that is better than me can explain that. Maybe he thinks that Prodigy will be able to get away otherwise, something like that. Alright, so this will make the last hand. This is going to be an interesting one for sure. Flush closing turn, check, check. And then high mark goes for his 3x overbet again. And I might think, wow, these guys are doing that all the time, it seems like. Not really. I just selected the ones where it happened. And 10-4 deuce. 10-4-3. 10-4-3. I'm guessing 40% on the flop. 40% on the flop. Okay. Call. Ace. No leading here. There might be like a little bit of leading on some. No, actually, there's not. I don't think there is. I'll show an interesting leading situation in a sec, but we'll end with like the interesting leading situation. This was ace, jack, and then in position we'll need to check back on the flush closing turns. You need to check back your flushes and sets, but like even your flushes, 23% of the times compared to all the other situations that we were in, or like some very dry texture. Right? Let's say we make this whatever, like 9 of diamonds or something like that. And we go here. You're just allowed to bet your overpair plus pure. There's no checking back. There's like some checking back with top pair, but that would be enough here. And the reason is very simple, by the way. Range is here, clear advantage in the top of the range. If we go to the equity buckets, then very clear advantage in the top of the range for the in-position player. If you make this the ace of clubs, then there will be a slight advantage, I guess, but you can see 15.8% top hands. Go back to that, and now you can see the difference much larger. Less top hands, more top hands for the in-position player. So that is basically the difference. If you go here now, you can see the top of the range much more evenly distributed. And so if you're just betting all of those hands in the top of your range, which we'll do in a second, let's say we're just going to play versus the average 25-0 Russian cash player, then you'll just see, okay, I have a set, I have a flush, I'm just betting. I'm not even saying that that's a mistake, right? First the pool, it's probably okay to do that. It's okay to be underprotected here, because what needs to happen on a blank here, blank-ish card, 5 of hearts, is there need to be shoves. 23% shoves. Let's say there's a check, then the in-position player bets, and then again 16% shoves. And just so you understand how big of a shove this is, the pot at this point here is 10 big blinds, and you're just shoving in 9.5x pot, which is pretty extreme. And then the problem for the in-position player is there's fuck all he can do. He can fold everything, which is what most players at low stakes will do. I think maybe straights will get called, but sets probably get folded, because even at low stakes, someone that is trying to win at poker will realize, okay, you're just going to have flushes here, I don't have flushes. And probably he's not bluffing for 10x pot as often as he should be. So there's that. But yeah, like what then happens, let's say we do that for a second. Let's say there's not going to be any calls with like third pair, second pair, top pair, two pair. Like, let's just remove these. And let's say, well, like once every blue moon, they feel too attached to their hand and they will still call their sets or whatever. Again, 0 calls with top pair. Then we go lock all. So very few calls now, right? And then we can see we just shove everything in the face. Now, obviously, you can't do this consistently, because then people will start like realizing, hey, this dude has shoved 9.5x pot 3 times in a row. I don't think he has a flush all these 3 times. The point is, whenever you are capping yourself as the in-position player, the out-of-position player can bet really large, and there's nothing you can do. You just gotta call pairs in position in theory. In practice, probably you don't want to do that, right? That's not what we're saying. But if we're the out-of-position player, then we might want to go for some very big bets to exploit this imbalance. That is something that we should be doing, right? If we go to the ranges now, we can see we have that very top of the range crushed. Like if you remember in like here, it was evenly distributed, but because the in-position player is betting over the top of the range and he's now checking, you get into something like this, and then you get to go crazy. All right, as promised, I would show you guys a cool leading note. So we will go, maybe I'll make a video on leading. I think that would be fun. But we'll go here, Ace King 7, UTG versus the big blind. We are on the big blind, and UTG is playing his equilibrium strategy of betting quite often. You can see 75% for an overbet is pretty damn often. Call, we call, and then the turn is a queen. And we will see queen of spades here. Now we want to lead our entire range, and think of it for a second, like you've already seen the equity graph. Why this is, why would we want to lead on a texture that is that has these many high cards, ace, king, queen? Well, it has to do with the flushes. Like on the screen, basically, go here, hands, flushes 1.8% because of those tight opening ranges. There's not too many lower flushes here. And the out position player is folding all of his trash on the flop, is folding a bunch of weaker pairs on the flop, is folding gutters on the flop. He's calling flush draws pretty much always, if not always. I'm not entirely sure. Flush draws sometimes folding even, but pretty much always calling. And so when this queen rolls off, suddenly there's like a pretty big advantage in the top of the range, as we can see here. And when we see this equity graph, that almost begs the question, like, why aren't we betting bigger, GTO Wizard? So we put an overbet in there, and then we can see actually we get the bet range and overbet sometimes, because we have that advantage in the top of the range. Now, if you want to do something very funny, is you'd say, well, okay, let's say I want to play this strategy. First of all, look at the EV. Let's look at the EV here for out of position 11.3. Now let's say no, we want to open shove or check here, which is not really a thing, right? Like it's going to be lower EV, but we can see 11.3. How much would this cost us? A reasonable amount, enough to not want to do this, but you have an open shoving strategy here. As you can see, in order to be balanced, you need to shove pairs, because like I said, you're going to fold a bunch of the very weak stuff already on the flop. You're not really going to have a lot of high card hands, so in order to be balanced, like at this point you have 0 unmade hands. So you need to bluff second pair, third pair, low pair even for an all-in sizing. If you go just with an overbet, then you'd need to bet everything even more often. Let's say we go back and, oh wait, we'll do this first. So overbet, shove, and in position just is indifferent with sets basically. And is he calling his flushes? Flushes are pure calling, but straights and sets are indifferent. Now obviously we don't want to do that. The best single sizing would be 1.5x here. So we'll do that. But you can see even top pairs, like naked top pairs, need to bluff here for overbet because we have such a strong range. Like I said, no unpaired hands, a lot of flushes, significant advantage throughout the range that we need to do that if we go with an overbet. A very unique scenario which shows you the way board texture can influence the asymmetry between ranges. In position on the flop, very big advantage, but because ranges are very tight, and this usually happens in tighter formations versus larger bet sizes when the ranges become much tighter. Like you can see here on the flop, 400 whatever combos and 186. When we're on the turn, that is 20% of the range, roughly. Wait, no, wait, it's actually this one. Like what is it, like, I don't know, 40% of the range. The other one is 30-ish% of the range, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, you get the point, like much tighter ranges, and so board texture will have a much bigger impact on how those ranges interact. One way to look at this is one player has pocket aces, the other guy has pocket eights. You go to the flop, if an 8 rolls off, pocket 8 is going to be leading always, unless there's an ace obviously. If there's no 8, then it's going to range check and aces will bet always. So board texture will be very significant when ranges are tight, when ranges are very wide. That's not as much the case. Anyway, this is the cool leading spot that I promised you randomly in this video. I'm sure that most of you have not made it to the end by now, and my retention graph will suck, but that's fine with me. I can live with that. If you made it to the end, kudos to you. You might as well join the free Discord server, so link in the comments down below. If you're playing today, good luck at the tables and talk to you guys soon. Bye.